We need to breathe more. I'm serious. And by the time we finish this video, you'll be learning not just why, but how. I'm giving you 2 different exercises. And if you take this seriously, you're going to discover a whole new level of energy. Now, why is it so important? Why do we need to learn to breathe? Haven't we been doing that all our lives? I mean, seriously. I'm alive equals I'm breathing, right? Yes, but not necessarily enough. And that is a very important point to understand. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of patients over the years. I'm testing their breathing capacities. I'm testing their Chinese pulse. Very practical to understand how energetic we are right here, right now. And when I compare their energy levels, before and after they do some breathing exercises on the spot, their energy levels can spike like 2 to 3 to 5 times what they started with that day. So let's talk about breathing, okay? One of the weirdest things that happen to us as humans is that when we're stressed out, we tend to breathe less. Some say it's because we're still imagining that lion walking nearby, so if we stop breathing, it won't hear us. Thankfully, we usually do not run across lions where we live, just ambushing us. But the reality is that every kind of stress, to a certain degree, reminds us of that ancestral instinct. That's the only explanation I found so far that was logical, or that made sense at least. But the reality is that when we actually don't breathe enough, we get more stressed biologically. So it becomes harder to relax if you don't breathe. So this is like a catch-22. You don't want to get stuck in not breathing enough. And it won't happen on its own if you don't take charge of your breathing. It just won't. It's muscles. You actually need to practice those muscles for breathing to become something healthier than it already is right now if you're not breathing well. And believe me, I've seen yoga teachers not breathing well enough. I've seen athletes not breathing enough. So even if you are one of the two, don't assume. Check whether you are consciously breathing routinely. Notice those moments when you suddenly realize you've totally forgotten to breathe for the last couple of minutes. Yeah. So, what is important about the fact that we need to breathe more? And what does it matter? So if you're about to go through a liver flush, to shoot out some gallstones, you need to be energetic enough. That is the one thing that can really come between you and a healthy flush. It's a very safe system so long as you have enough energy. And one of the things that make the most difference from our experience over the last 30 years is breathing exercises. I mean, some people only sleep 4 hours a night, so obviously their sleep is going to be more crucial. Others just forget to drink altogether, so maybe when they drink enough, that'll make the big difference. But 99% of the cases I've seen over the past 30 years needed one thing to be a lot more energetic, and that is to breathe again. And there's a lot of nuances to breathing. I'm not going to go down the full rabbit hole, otherwise I'll need like 2 days for this video. I'm going to go to the most important aspects we need to know so we can understand why we're exercising, and then so we can actually understand the exercises themselves. So, if we're assuming that for years now, being stressed as we all are, we've been breathing less than optimal. Not enough times a minute and not enough depth to our breath, not enough exhalation to take out all the CO2, then we obviously have 2 problems. Habit, we're not in the habit of breathing enough, and weak muscles. We don't use them enough in a good, strong way. So it's going to be harder for us to actually breathe well, even if we are consciously choosing to do so minute by minute. I've had patients exercise, practice these breathing exercises and actually get so tired out of it within 2 or 3 minutes. I'm not talking about an hour's breathing, that they actually had their pulse dropping rather than rising. I mean, those muscles really need to be trained back into shape. So when I'm talking about breathing exercise, I'm talking about the need for more practice, to get to the point where the muscles are strong enough, our capacity is big enough, and therefore we can work on our habit a lot less, effortfully. Weird word, never mind. It could be a lot more effortless if we do it right. And we definitely want to make sure it's part of the routine so that we build those muscles up. And there's several different tools, and when it comes to breathing exercises, some of them are more relaxing, some of them are more exhilarating. Some are better for mornings, some are better for evenings. We don't want to mess things up because then we could actually ruin our health by doing it the wrong way. So I want to teach you 2 exercises. One of them is very good for uplifting. First morning exercise, it can be very effective, it doesn't take long. And the second exercise can easily be balanced between, an exhilarating to a degree to a relaxing in a degree. The second one is my main exercise, the one I teach already in other videos online. But all of these are actually taken from the world of yoga. So if you open up YouTube and just look for breathing exercises from yogis, you'll find a lot of different exercises. It's about choosing the right ones for the right tools, for the right timing, etc. So I'm just giving you 2 practical ones, and let's learn them now. Okay? The first one, I call it crickets. It's a cute name to remember it by. And if you use the system I use, it actually sounds like that. And if several people practice together, it totally sounds like there's a cricket field nearby. And I'm talking about the cricket, make sounds, not the game, of course. So there's the classical name. I'm not going to bother you with all the Indian ancient names. I call it crickets because you simply make a sound during the practice, which sounds like. So if some people say it, do this together, it would come like, which is very much like crickets, or at least some of the kinds that we have around here. So how do we practice this? And why are we practicing this for? The cricket is about breathing out in full lung gusts. You just take all your air out in one shot. And when you do that, you're actually working on your diaphragm very, very strongly. It goes, compresses it all out. And therefore it tonifies the diaphragm in a beautiful way. Now you want to do it slow and gentle at first, otherwise you will get cramps, and they are not fun to have. Full diaphragm cramps are like a terror. So do it gently, grow gradually, don't speed up too fast. The whole point here is the fact that you're breathing everything in your lung out in one shot and then allowing the air to come in spontaneously. You don't inhale on purpose, it just happens. Okay, and it just looks like this. And what's happening actually, maybe I should lift myself up a little. You'll see that my diaphragm is around here. It's a one shot. It's not. It's a one shot condensation of the whole lungs. It just breathes everything out. It actually airs out the lungs beautifully, clearing out all kinds of old gunk that we have inside there. If you're an old smoker, you might start coughing because of this, so be mindful of this. Don't be too aggressive. And it actually does a very, very powerful energizing of the body because of this very strong process. That's why it's very good for the mornings. I wouldn't do it last thing at night. It might actually wake you up too much, get you all energized, and you'll find yourself having a hard time falling asleep. It's also good when you're a little low and you want to raise your energies, raise your vibes. It'll actually do the trick. It's also a little funny when you do it the cricket style. So it has its benefits, and if you do it together with other people, it's a really fun exercise in either timing, syncope, or together. Whatever happens, it's a good exercise. Practice it. But 2 tips. Again, slowly at first, but not because you're slowly taking out, slowly as in versus which can really be hard at first. Okay? Every 10 or 15 breaths, stop, exhale all the way, inhale all the way, and hold for 3 or 4 seconds, just to allow, replacement of CO2 with O2 in the system. You know, let it do its job, and it also relaxes the system while you do that, so you don't hyperventilate, you don't overexert yourself. Now the second exercise I call 1-4-2. It's a ratio, and just remembering these 3 digits in this order makes it easy to remember this exercise once you understand it. Now, why is it called 1-4-2? Because you have a ratio of, let's call it X seconds of inhalation times 4 in seconds of holding your breath, and then times 2 in seconds of exhalation. So it's like 5 seconds inhale, 20 seconds hold your breath, 10 seconds exhale. Now you can do this exercise all the way up to 16, 64, 32 according to the classical yoga. Okay, that's almost 2 minutes of one breath. That's a lot. And I remember doing that when I was like 17 years old and actually looking to see if I'm floating in the air. It felt like that. It's amazing. But getting to that requires building up to it. Don't try to do it straight in that number unless you're 6 or 7 years old. Children can do it like offhand very often if they don't have asthma. So build towards it. The challenge here is to be able to do 10 of those breaths in a row, no breaks. And so you need to have the right level, the right number for X. Okay, if you start with 8, 32, 16, it's very likely it's going to be too hard at first. And you'll run out of breath in the middle. Don't force yourself. You want it to be an exercise. In other words, you want it to have some effort involved, but you want it at the point of the strain that's about 60-70% of your ability. Just enough to push yourself forward, not enough to cramp or to exert yourself beyond your need. There's absolutely no reason to go overboard with this. If you're elderly, 80 years old, even 70 years old at times, you may find it a little difficult to start at 5 or 6. So don't feel uncomfortable starting with 4 or 3. Look for the maximum level that you can do with a reasonable amount of strain. And you have to be able to hold all 3 phases. So if one of them breaks for you, if one of them is too much for you, stop, reduce the level, and start again. If it's easy, if it's even too easy, raise the bar. And if you really want to get yourself into a strong build of breathing, then once you find your number, let's say it's 5, 20, 10, that's usually a very good starting point for most people. Make sure to test yourself with 6 every day, every time you start up. Okay, you start with 6, 24, 12, and if it's too hard, you go back to 5. If it's already comfortable, wonderful. Next time, start with 7. Just the first run, unless it's easy. Okay, test your limits, build your habits. Okay, it's very, very important to treat this like you would treat any other kind of exercises. You want to build up your muscle, you want to build up your habit, you want to build up your capacity. And it changes a lot. It will help you if you're, wind instrument professional. As a flautist myself, I know that doing these breathing exercises allowed me then to hold very long musical sentences with one breath. But it's also very, very practical for the basics of just being alive and healthy, especially if you want to do your liver flush anytime soon and you want to have that energy. So breathing exercises can do it. So let's do this 1-4-2 again. 1-4-2 again. This time we do it for real. We'll run a 5, 20, 10 together. We'll do it 2 times in a row. I'll be counting with my fingers to give you that rhythm. Okay. I also want to just interject that inside our community online, we have this as a digital exercise to support. I created a bot that actually breathes with you, counts the breaths with you, so you can, keep in line and keep it, steady. It's a very comfortable thing to use, so you don't have to think all the time, how many times have I done already, etc., etc. Okay, 1-4-2, 5, 20, 10. We start with exhalation. Take it all out. Inhale slowly and not 100%. Keep it to the 80%. And we stop. No breathing. Exhale. And inhale. Stop. Now, why is it important not to fill your lungs to capacity, but only 80%? Well, the reason for that is that if you'll try it, you'll see that when you fill your lungs to the max, it'll be much harder to hold your breath. And we don't, we're not looking just to overexert yourself. We're not looking to test our limits. We're looking to build our limits, to raise our capacity. So by breathing only 80% capacity, by inhaling only to 80% capacity, you're making the whole process lighter, less stressful. Okay? If this was easy for you, and stays easy even after a full 10 rounder, 10 times 152, 152, like 10, you might want to go up to 6, 24, 12. If it was hard for you doing these two exercises, you might want to start with 4, 16, 8. Drop a line below. Tell me, what was your base capacity? How did you feel after you exercised? How did you feel after you exercised 10 times in a row? Okay. Also, make sure you do this in a good aired out room so that you're actually getting fresh air. It kind of misses the point to do that in a dungeon somewhere, especially if it's very moist. You want a nice fresh air supply when you're doing breathing exercises. It kind of makes sense. Don't forget to sign up for the channel to get more, and we got plenty more coming. And I will see you on the next one.